199 days away from today, amid the realization that this target cannot be met in many countries. The need is ever more pressing to marshal more resources, coordinate our efforts, better and absolutely review our policies and strategies, while harnessing all that we can to fulfill the moral and spiritual obligation of guaranteeing the younger generation and those unborn a brighter and better future.
The establishment of this learning entity is yet another step taken in shaping the future. And a quality education is what...
We'll be right back with more stories after this. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to GRTS News. Over 50,000 supporters of the newly elected Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta have witnessed his inauguration at the Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi. 15 African heads of state attended the inauguration of a man who has taken his oath of office 50 years after his father did the same. We have details of that story in the CFI report.
Early this morning, they converged on the Kasarani National Football Stadium in Nairobi. 60,000 supporters watched and cheered as Uhuru Kenyatta took the oath of office as president after being elected in the first round of last month's elections.
Man, the numbers are huge. I'm not even sure whether I'll get space inside, but I'm hopeful.
My feelings is just to have fun, to see the next president, the fourth president of Kenya.
Some 15 African heads of state and government attended the swearing-in ceremony, but there were no Western leaders who preferred to send their ambassadors. Uhuru Kenyatta, like his Vice President William Ruto, faces trial at the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity related to post-election violence 5 years ago. Their trial begins in a few weeks. Both of them have agreed to cooperate. But on Tuesday, it was celebration time. His hand on the Bible, Uhuru Kenyatta took the oath of office 50 years after his father, Jomo Kenyatta, the leader of Kenya's War of Independence and the country's first president.
I, Uhuru Kenyatta, do swear that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya.
And bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya.
Although the ICC question lingers, the swearing-in marks the end of a peaceful election process. Apart from isolated incidents, and despite the close outcome, a repeat of 2007 was avoided.
On Thursday, North Korean army has said it has final approval for a nuclear attack on the U.S. The UN sanctions have deeply affected Pyongyang's ability to generate cash, and its decision to shut one of its bases will also have an impact on the country. But as CNN's Chris Lawrence reports, Kim Jong-un has other ways for his country to turn a profit.
When it comes to selling technology, the launch pad is Kim Jong-un's showroom, and the missile test doubles as a marketing tool.
It's telling other countries, look what you could have also for a price.
Libya and Iran have been willing clients, but former U.S. intelligence official Joe Detrani says sanctions have cut into sales. Kim is profiting off illegal weapons, but brings in $20 to $100 million less than his father.
How important is money to Kim Jong-un?
Money is key. He's got to keep the elites happy.
North Korea has its own version of the 1%. Kim needs that money stream to keep them on his side. Fortunately for Kim, North Korea has legal goods and a willing trade partner right next door.
Who is Kim's link to China?
It has to be Jong Sung-taek.
And Jong is part of the family. Kim elevated his uncle to number 2. Jong Sung-taek oversees some of the state-run trading companies, which mine reserves like coal and iron ore. Jong uses his connections to sell those minerals to China. and the profits come back to Kim.
This is the man who can cut the deal with China. He has a lot of credibility with the Chinese, yes.
Thanks in part to Kim's uncle, trade with China is booming, from $1 billion a few years ago to $5 billion now.
We've accounted for the weapons and the minerals. How else is he getting money?
He's getting money through illicit transactions.
U.S. officials say North Korea is exporting illegal drugs like meth, producing knockoffs of popular cigarettes and pharmaceutical drugs, even counterfeiting good old Ben Franklin.
A U.S. official tells us that the illicit stuff is still pretty small scale, but the North does get a bit more from tourism and foreign investment from South Korea and China. But in a country where residents don't pay taxes and the country's not connected to the international trading market, the official says basically it's minerals and weapons that are the cash cows keeping Kim in power. Chris Lawrence, CNN, Washington.
President Barack Obama has made an emotional appeal to Congress urging lawmakers to pass new gun control laws. Barack Obama, after making the plea in Newtown, Connecticut, where a young man killed 20 children and 6 educators 4 months ago, brought the families of the shooting victims to Washington to help make his case. We have more in this report by CNN.
Christie, and certainly very, I guess you would say, unique. I've never really seen President Obama sort of bringing his advocates with him to Washington on Air Force One, but with Congress struggling to find a gun measure that will even see debate on the Senate floor, President Obama can use all the help he can get.
If he can't convince Congress to take up gun legislation, perhaps they can. President Obama brought 12 family members of the Newtown shooting victims back to Washington with him, personally ushering them off Air Force One. Among them,
the President of the United States,
Nicole Hockley, who lost her 6-year-old son Dylan at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
Though sometimes the waves of sadness are so great they threaten to drown me, I stand before you now and ask you to stand with me, with all the families.
Hockley had earlier introduced the president as he began a week-long White House push for a gun bill. Obama criticized Republican senators for trying to block a measure from coming to the Senate floor.
In the wake of a tragedy, you'd think this would not be a heavy lift. And yet some folks back in Washington are already floating the idea that they may use political stunts to prevent votes on any of these reforms.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is now planning to join the 13 senators who say they will filibuster a bill. Democrats are hoping to overcome the filibuster with a bipartisan compromise that would require background checks for all or almost all gun purchases. The measure has overwhelming public support but is in jeopardy in the Senate.
We have to tell Congress it's time to require a background check for anyone who wants to buy a gun so that people who are dangerous to themselves and others cannot get their hands on a gun. Let's make that happen.
Now, this is very much part of a full-court press by the White House this week on this issue. Vice President Joe Biden, along with the Attorney General Eric Holder, are holding an event here at the White House today where it will focus on law enforcement. They'll have a number of law enforcement officials with them. And then, Chrissy, tomorrow, the First Lady herself, Michelle Obama, will head to Chicago. She'll be talking about how young people need opportunity, and that includes being able to grow up with safety from guns.
Time now to join the Center Forecast Office for a look at the weather report.
The source assures us of a continuous flow, and from there, everything follows. And for those of us who know what the River Gambia stands for, understanding its sustainability in all aspects of life is easily confirmed. The River Gambia provides nutritious delicacies as food, while it provides its wildlife a balanced ecosystem. This river, as a sanctuary, is committed to its inhabitants' needs without season. And as you travel along, all these values are replicated in one company, Elton, just like the River Gambia, leads in its commitment to values that matter most. Elton, championing the vision for a new generation.